So what I'm going to introduce you today is the practice of loving inquiry. And if we're ever going to find a solution to our anxiety, we need to look and find a solution for fear. And we're going to do that with loving inquiry. You see, if we're going to cure our anxiety, now anxiety is a very, very broad field. Everyone suffers anxiety, uncertainty, fear of the unknown, separation, death, the end of good things, the not starting of good things, the not ending of bad things, and on we can go, where a lot of what we experience in life is based in fear. And it's a subject we hardly ever look at. You can go into therapy today and be lost talking about issues and problems and so on that are symptoms of fear. They're not even going near to the real thing. When we're looking at doing loving inquiry, we must understand what love is, which is an intense feeling of seriously deep affection, and all affection and compassion that we want to have in the world, in other words, in the world of form, is something that we need to feel on the inside. We need to have intimacy with the self, a fond regard for ourselves, and some kind of tenderness that a lot of us don't even know we're missing. Love can be defined as a great pleasure or interest in something, and we lose interest in ourselves and wonder why depression, anxiety, burnout, stress, personality disorders, dysfunction, dis-ease, and lack of opportunities caused by a lack of meaning in our lives affects us so much. We need to be infatuated with the self, of growing and nurturing it and loving it, not thinking that it's a dirty word, that it is blasphemous, that it is ridiculous. Love begets love. Love becomes love. Okay, so we must know what love is, which is an intense, deep affection for the self, for God, for other. And that's it. And we've got to go in and check. We've got to go in and see, is love inside me? Is it intense? Is it a strong feeling that I have, or is it dulled out and lost? So, we can use our senses, and we can use love as both a verb and a noun. Love really is that power of love that is inside us and allows us to really deeply and intimately connect and enmesh and join with others in our journey to transcending fear, which ends up as our personalities masks, our egoic self-interests. That is part of our nature. It is our lower nature, and it's okay. It is our shadow self to have an ego that is selfish, garrulous, and demanding. Every war, every act of cruelty, every act of me thinking I'm better than you, whether it's Nazi to Jew, or Jew to Gentile, or black to white, or left to right, whatever it's going to be. You see, it's a journey of love. The more self-aware we are, the greater our capacity to love God, self, and other. This is the nature of God. The nature of God is love. And anything that is not in that nature is separation. Right, so we can move forward with that now. So loving inquiry is introspection. It's finding out where my love is and the emotions of love. Are they guiding me? Are they my inner compass? Emotions of love and thoughts become things. And if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. So understand that love is gratitude. It is trust, patience, kindness. Come on, it's all of these things. Are they inside generosity? Make sure it's not just an idea. that you have in your head and you haven't been generous for a decade or two. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Vulnerability, courage, reverence for life, all of these things are symptoms of love that keep us creating. Anything less is separation from our authenticity. God's nature is love. Our nature is love. So where does fear come from? I always say that all fear is separation anxiety. All anxiety is based in separation anxiety. See, fear is the idea that you are separate from love, which is your nature, which is God's nature, which is the nature of the universe. But fear creates emotional states that do not exist. And in turn, these create pain and suffering that we experience in our lives. So fear is where it starts to go wrong. Separation, when you come out of your mother's womb, it happens. You're not really separate from your mother, of course, but there's a physical appearance that appears real, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. It's real, but not true, as Tara Brach would say. It's real. You're seeing a separation, but are you separate from your mother? Not when you hug, not when you connect, even emotionally, and so on and so forth, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So fear, this non-existent emotion that becomes so real and actually drives us, we can call it dream state rather than reality. It's a state created by your frightened personality to keep you safe from all the monsters that lurk in your closet and under your bed at night. So it's a necessary evil. I mean, you got to get closer to a definition of fear than that. And Jed McKenna talked about this dream state, a dream state that we forget. So when we were separate from our mother, someone came to us with a book and a rhyme and said, "Row, row, row your boat gently downstream. Merrily, merrily, merrily." What? Life is but a dream. So these dream states where fear lives are real but not true. And Jed McKenna said, all attachments to the dream state are made of energy. That energy is called emotion. All emotions, whether positive or negative, are attachments. Can you see where I'm getting to separation anxiety? Humans are emotion-based creatures, and all emotions derive their energy from one core emotion, which is fear. Fear, he says, cannot be confronted or slain because it is fear of nothing, of no self. The desire to slay fear is itself a fear-based emotion. So what do we do with fear? Fear can only be surrendered to the thing feared. You can spend your life hacking away at the million-headed hydra of attachment and never make any progress. Or you can follow emotional energy back to its source, its lair, and see Leviathan, enemy of light, for what it really is, your heart. So this heart-centeredness, this nature of love, emotional energy going back to source, is the spiritual solution that you're possibly looking for that will change everything around for you today. All anxiety is separation anxiety, and our need for love and belonging or going without it is at the heart of all our fears. So how do we heal from fear? In order to heal from fear, we need to move from separation to integration. In this way, we no longer fragment and project, but rather face our fears. And in doing so, we dissolve them. Fear is by nature false evidence appearing real, as we've just said. So fear can appear real, and it can look and feel and taste real, but it's not necessarily true. This is where the process of loving inquiry becomes useful. What is true is what we need to find out. We need to question what we think, feel, and believe, which is the practice of contemplation. This is how we heal. We heal by allowing the truth to set us free. But now, before I go on any further, I want you to understand the power of contemplation, the purpose of contemplation. And we've really laid it out in the book, The Power of Contemplative Intelligence, which is your awareness that you're not your IQ, you're not your mind, you're not your analytics, you're not your calculating self that you grew up with, that had that intense need to survive and then people please and be codependent and play the victim when we had to, and so on and so forth. When we realize we're not the animal, the anima, we start to need to be able to check what is real and what is true. And we can do so with contemplation, contemplative practice. And contemplation simply is how we penetrate illusion, the false, the appearing real, and how we then touch reality as the truth sets us free. Contemplative practice is something that I recommend to everybody. It's the zero, that where meditation is the one, contemplation is the zero. It's really going beyond your thoughts. And what is beyond your thoughts? Pure consciousness. Imagine what we're capable of when we're operating from a place of pure consciousness rather than egoic defense. This is really a difference that makes all the difference in the world. I want you to remember that some of the greatest minds in the world, in our history, have thought by killing millions of people, thousands and hundreds and millions of people, depending on who you're talking about. And it's going on today in Palestine and Israel. I'm not saying either one is good or bad. They're just not using any intelligence, never mind contemplative intelligence. War ends badly, and they think they're doing a good thing. And that is the mind, and it's a collective consciousness that needs to end. The good news is that it is ending. So to understand how to work your contemplative intelligence is really something that you should go into, because it's a way we can really penetrate all illusion. And there's so much illusion around us. Reality is far, far bigger than what we normally see at first, because those who have eyes, let them see. It's not the physical eyes. Those who have ears, let them hear. It's the contemplative practice that allows you to ask, is it true? Is this person actually my enemy? And it's thoughts of enemy that appear real but are not true. The only enemy is within. Your only enemy is your ego, pride, and discord. No one else is your enemy but yourself. So you need to love your enemy. So just get a basic idea of what contemplation is. It teaches you to think about thinking, meta-thought. It might be just the highest form of intelligence that we have. It is a dance with the physical, the psychological, the spiritual, and emotional. And it really has a tendency to heal people and then transform them. It's the be still and know that I am God, is to contemplate, to actually question yourself, which the brain, of course, hates to do. It has no trust. It's defensive. So contemplation is simply being fully present in heart and mind to what is, and how you pause and then creatively respond to everything in your environment, which is everything physical, that life throws at you or brings your way. It helps us to let go of our usual self-focused habitual ways of thinking and doing things that are so entrenched we don't even realize we're doing them. It does this so that we can reach deeper into the self and really get that compassionate, connected, and creative side of ourselves, and just we let it emerge through contemplative practice. We develop the capacity to witness our egoic motivations, something that we just completely and utterly hide from ourselves, like the mind hides the nose from your face so that you can look around and not be bothered by it. All of these mental shortcuts create a good and bad, a dichotomous mind. You're wrong and I'm right. This black and white thinking that's plaguing the earth at the moment. Through contemplation, though, we can at least develop the capacity to witness this ego, the masks of personality, and from day to day, using contemplative practice, we can just increase our authenticity through deeper awareness of ourselves, God, and others. Is it really true, even though it appears real? So it will really move you from existential crisis to existential discovery, from certainty to uncertainty, and from fear to love. So how do we heal from fear? We must understand that there's separation, and we must move from separation to integration. We must integrate the two sides of ourselves, the human and the spiritual self, the lower and higher self need to be integrated again. We can't just forget that we have an ego and we have all these character defects and we have these masks that hide our fears and we become selfish people. It's always someone else who's selfish. But no, that's not true. No matter how much work you've done, that's what happens to us, especially when we're squeezed. I want you to remember, if you take an orange and you squeeze it, you're not going to get lemon juice out of there. You're going to get orange juice. Fear is inside. And the sooner we know that, the better, so that we can apply the antidote, which is love. We need to heal through questioning what we believe. That's how we overcome depression. I mean, that's what you do. You go and you sit with a therapist and you talk and you feel and you sort out and iron out and get the truth to bubble to the surface. First, it normally will really irritate you before it sets you free. So loving inquiry teaches us that fear can only be surrendered to. We need to find the EQ, the heart, the courage to surrender and accept it. It's like accepting the dragon and walking towards the dragon, putting down the sword and trying to give him a hug. The dragon who holds the princess captive, who has that pot of gold, which is your freedom and your sanity, that he is defending with his dragon breath. But we're not going to get the dragon to surrender to us. That's why he looks like he does and breathes fire. But we can overcome the dragon with love. We can befriend the dragon and teach the dragon how to love us back. And in so doing, he'll let the princess go and share the pot of gold. And that's how we all metaphorically stop what we're doing by bombing each other overseas. But we literally slay the dragon with the emotion of love by asking ourselves what we are thinking. We ask ourselves what we are believing. Belief is just what we think over and over again. And then we do the contemplative questioning work of examining your own belief systems, as terrifying as that may sound. You look for thinking errors, your false associations. All men are bad. I had a bad father. I dislike all immigrants. Come on, this is hard work. And of course you're not guilty, but other people are. Fear is inside all of us. This is something we need to start talking about. What else? Women are bad drivers. She died way too young. How do we know? How do we know? Are we playing God? He will never amount to anything is another favorite of ours. She never ever lets me get a word and she will never change. And on we can go. So we need to examine these beliefs with loving inquiry, with compassion, so that we can be sure we're not falling prey to these false beliefs that create our pain and suffering in the world, not just in ourselves. Paulo Coelho said, wherever your heart is, that is where you'll find your treasure, just like the dragon and his treasure. So we're led to believe a lie, and loving inquiry is a stillness practice. It's a real connection practice that we need to do with ourselves. A scientific journal just last year said that up to 50% of our memories are false and untrue. Yet we're convinced that they're bad, that this is wrong, that Trump is evil, that this one's good. Really? we need to question reality, because it's perception that we will find in place of reality. Reality never changes. Perception always constantly changes. It's the Buddha law of change, the law of impermanence, that this mind is just never ever going to stop. When we practice loving inquiry, love is patient. It's nature. The nature of love is nothing like the mind. Consider that the Nazis thought the Jews were evil and inferior, and they actually were fearful that the Jews would overtake their country. So they sat and turned a blind eye while 14 million people died. A mass extermination. Real, but not true. Palestinians and Israelis, this is not a new thing. They taught from an early age to gear up and develop a deep hatred for the other. And they're taught this by parents. They're taught this by teachers. Really? They're teaching deep hatred for the other, and everything lies in ruins when it starts with hatred. So loving inquiry is really, hold on a second, is my enemy my enemy? And you'll find that the answer is no. We've put these Palestinians and Israelis, the youngsters, together in experiments, and we've had 2 groups of teens together. And it's not even a matter of minutes until we see love dissipating fear, almost instantly, along with all the fear and the lies that they've led to believe all their lives from people they trusted dissolve. And they sit and they converse and they said, I didn't think you'd be like that. I didn't realize that we were so alike. And isn't that amazing? That's what we can do in a matter of minutes. In South Africa, we've got great examples of how ridiculous fear can be. Unconscious mind and a closed heart can keep Nelson Mandela in prison for 27 years. Apartheid. All anxiety is apart. It's all separation, right? All the fake news today that we see on TV is built on fear. It's commonplace and we just accept it. Fear also breeds lies that make us gender biased, classist and racist, and the list goes on and on. Yet none of this is our true nature. Love is our true nature, and I really want you to get that today. And you're going to learn that through loving inquiry. The reality doesn't change. And if we've got fear inside, the world wars that we've gone through, not 1 but 2, possibly a 3rd coming. World wars were Cain and Abel all over again. Brother jealous of brother. We cannot stop killing. The Cain and Abel story was because of lies, of separation, of anger, jealousy, superiority, inferiority, blaming and criticism, all the things that fear is made up of. All he needed to do was a little bit of loving inquiry before he took a stone and smashed his brother's skull in, and the killing hasn't stopped since that day. And again, the mind will tell you how awful people are in the East if you're in the West, in the South if you're in the North. But the truth is, our children are playing video games, killing the enemy. They're led to celebrate our soldiers who are killing the enemy. Half of what we watch on TV is good guys killing bad guys. We've learned nothing from Cain and Abel. We practice it over and over again. What we really need is a return to love. A return to love, which is coming, will save the world. When we remember who we are, the insanity stops. Let's move on and understand how we return to love to save ourselves, each other, and the world. When we remember who we are, the insanity stops, the overthinking of survival mind stops, and we stop acting like monkeys swinging through the trees. We are not separate from our enemy, and the anxiety dissipates. Can you see how this is almost too simple to teach? I've known people who loved their husband or wife and then became divorced, and they were eaten from the inside out by disease, the disease of bitterness and resentment and hurt when they once loved each other. All they needed to practice was loving inquiry. Loving inquiry stops us dead in our tracks before thoughts become things, before we get eaten from the inside out. It allows us to stop, use that CQ, that contemplation, and really question our thinking and see that we are believing a lie. The mind is biased to believe lies. We have defense mechanisms, cognitive distortions, false memories, and we impulsively fall prey to projection. The other is bad. It protected us once, now it destroys us. So this we call taking a contemplative pause, this stopping and questioning what I believe. Take even 3 seconds before you answer or commit to something in between stimulus and response. Stimulus is experienced through your 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, sound, and taste. And you need to take a pause before you respond. Really get down to the feelings. Find gratitude, reverence, trust, appreciation. Okay, we have a dog die or a family member, and we stop seeing, appreciating, having reverence and gratitude and love and care from who's around us. We fall victim of allowing the projection, and we fall prey to allowing the projection to really, really bring us down. And that's fear's job. It wants us to, think we're winning a war like Israel, but it's going to bring us down. No doubt about it, it's maths. And this universe is based on mathematical equation. 1 + 1, love plus love equals universal love. Fear and cruelty, what are they going to, we're expecting to drop bombs on the ground and have love and joy and happiness arise from it. I just emphasize this because it's so serious to see how it can affect an entire world, never mind our entire being. So the peace we experience on the inside becomes how we see the world on the outside. And our harsh judgments of the other can begin to melt away with some loving inquiry like you won't believe. When you change the way you look at things, people, and places, those things, people, and places really do change. Enemies do become friends. So who I am requires me to ask who I am without the stories of the mind that I am believing. Jew, Christian, skeptic, scientist, or doubter, we're all invited. And it's really time to love the other, the different, the awkward, the imperfect. Because even though your mind won't really allow it, it'll separate you from the truth because you're imperfect too. You're awkward, different, sometimes hard to love too. So love always leaves a mark. And from now on, we don't want to play Cain and Abel. We're one. We love our enemy if we're contemplative because we are the enemy. To love God in any religion is to love your neighbor. You love your neighbor that you think is your enemy when you become conscious. What do you think they meant by born again, by spiritual awakening? The separation. God is love. And could we just sit with that quietly and just exhale a sigh of relief? We have found that God is love. If we are making God war on any front, we've got a lot of contemplative work to do. That sigh of relief that the whole universe and every animal and mineral and star and angel and human being, present and future and past, the whole of creation is crying out for that sigh when we can finally wake up. Jehovah, Buddha, Krishna, Allah. The mind causes separation. All anxiety is separation anxiety. So we use loving inquiry to return. I want you to take some personal accountability right now as you become more and more conscious and understand that our thoughts and beliefs are maps that are not inherently true. And hang on to it, because the mind hates uncertainty. It feels anxiety when it thinks it cannot trust itself. So it will lie to you. Your own mind will lie to you. And this is why love is based on things like trust, honesty, openness. All lies are becoming hell. They burn everything up. And if we believe lies, we create hell. So we must investigate harmful beliefs by really, really investigating them and laying down new maps. And where do we get new maps from? Well, sometimes people who we thought were the enemy. Some people think the church is the enemy. And you've got this revolution of people leaving the church. For every one person that joins the church today, 6 people leave. But it's a threshing out. And this can come across as fear that people are separating them. I think we're just broadening the church. We're getting back to, nature was the first Bible. Being a staunch Christian and believer myself, it might not sound like it, but I'm very, very orthodox. It's love God. And what is the second commandment? Love your neighbor, but not the neighbor that you think is like you, the neighbor that you think is your enemy. So it's not only to love thy neighbor, it's to love thy enemy. And that's where consciousness took us. And when, of course, Christ said that he was murdered and butchered. And that's essentially what we need to do to our own minds, metaphorically speaking, is come back from the dead. It is, as St. Francis said, it is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. This is what he meant. These two minds, the one dichotomous, egoic, fearful, needs to die. Then we can be born to eternal life. Okay? We want to question our beliefs because we should not be conformed to the mind. Okay, so the necessary evil is that you're going to believe lies. You're going to conform to the survival instincts of your mind, and it's going to defend itself. Ego defense mechanisms are necessary evils. So we become aware usually of these necessary evils through suffering, depression, through suffering like stuckness, deep lostness, addictions, and so on. Then we can really, really understand what was spoken about in Romans 12:2. We were told, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, perfect will, which is loving. So we're all grinding and fighting, kicking and screaming, and edging our way out of fear and back to love. The monster in the closet is driving the killing and the brutality of every war on planet Earth at the moment today, because we are conformed to the world, but we can't be and expect a good result. We must be transformed. Transform meaning to go above form. And how do you do it? By the renewal of your mind. And this is loving inquiry. It will bring us to the perfect will of how things are meant to be, how God created them to be. And this is why so many people are waking up today. There might be 1 entering a church and 6 leaving, but there is a loving inquiry going on in these people. And we are coming together over the internet. We're coming together, religiously speaking. We're laying down our gender bias, our racism, and so many maps we're putting aside in the name of love. So now we can move on to how to practice loving inquiry. And one of the ways we practice loving inquiry is through writing it down. If we want to transcend the mind, we've got to work with it. We've got to understand that opening a loving inquiry and getting your true sacred self unhindered by the personality to respond to your inquiry of, is this or that true? Or am I trapped? Or is life meaningless? Or are they all bad? It's inquiry to make you compassionately aware that you need to be set free from something. So in other words, we're looking for a problem. When I'm not running a life that is dictated to me by the environment, which is everything on the outside, I'm truly, truly free. So if I don't want to run a life that is dictated to me by my environment or do not be conformed to the world, where do I go? I go inside. So the practice of loving inquiry starts with self-awareness. And you can get pen and paper to do it, or you can use one of the loving inquiry meditations, whatever you're going to do, or just do it through silence. So self-awareness is the very first step. When you become mindful that you're stressed, anxious, fearful, you'll know. Life is a way of letting us know when we're in pain. When you see something, you become self-aware and know that it is there and there's work to do. So next time you're fearful, anxious, understand its separation from the true self. And there's work to do. That's all. There's nowhere to run, fight, or freeze. There's work to do. The second step is self-discipline. No change can occur without self-discipline. I mean, this is what Tony Robbins and life coaches around the world are on about, is you cannot do anything with self-discipline. So they teach people self-discipline and they get massive, massive results. But for us, self-discipline is really the contemplative pause. It's asking, is what I am believing true? The pen is mightier than the sword, so write it down. It really brings clarity and clears the mind. It makes things real in real time, reality. So my thought is, write it down. My feeling about my thought is, write it down. I want to do, or I'm convinced that I believe that, write it down. This is pretty much like the Toyota process of inquiry of the 5 whys. You simply write down why 5 times, and each time go deeper through the layers of onion to get to the truth. So it's similar. So first, when practicing loving inquiry, we develop a self-awareness, become mindful that we're feeling trauma or stress or anxiety. We use self-discipline, practice a pause, don't act. Write it down. Third, we practice self-inquiry. What will happen if I start to think that? See, this is where we start to separate myth from reality. What will happen if I start to think that? If I start to feel that, what will I do? What would the real consequence be for me? Just remember that reality is always kind. You're going to write down simply to discover the truth. Step 4 is self-connection, remembering who you are. When you remember who you are, there's no separation. So list 5 values and 5 deeper emotions that you're feeling right now. And dig deep if you have to. Use the emotions wheel. It's on the internet. The worksheet of loving inquiries on the internet. And you practice self-connection by writing down your 5 values, your 5 deeper emotions that you're feeling right now. And that's how you remember who you are and start to practice self-connection. Step 5 is self-reflection. He, she, they are doing or have done or will do whatever to me because I judge them harshly. Let me say that again. Self-reflection is writing down he, she, they, whatever the situation is in your life, what they are doing or have done or will do to me is, and write down all the things in your environment that are happening to you, through you, because of them, and then end with because I judge them harshly. Our nature is to judge them harshly, to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves. But defense is the first act of war. Now, if we could teach Putin that, we would stop the war in Ukraine. If we could teach the Israeli government that they could be the first people to surrender rather than win a war, they're not going to win the war. So if we could get them to understand that no one wins at war, they would be doing self-reflection, which is the point that I'm asking you to do right now, rather than waiting for the other to surrender. And I hope this is becoming more consciously real for you. So self-reflection is a really, really hard one to do. And writing down because I judge them harshly is such an admission, but it's a powerful, powerful act that brings ownership, accountability, and authenticity that really brings good consequences for you. And finally, self-love. So you write down, I am, and you, who are you? Who are you really? Put your best values in here. I am, and decide who you are. That's what life is about. That's why you have this brain with the right and the left, the two sides, the indecision, the lack of self-discipline, the lack of self-inquiry, the lack of connection. You have all of this because suffering is getting us to self-love. So remember who you are. I am ... person who can choose compassion for the people, places, things, conversations, or situations because they have done their best, even though I don't like it. People are doing the best with the consciousness that they actually have. I don't want to feel this way, which is, and write it down. How is this person, place, thing? And write it down. How has this situation made you feel? I don't want to feel this way, so I choose to feel. Put it in there. That's how you make a decision for something better. How do you really choose to feel? This is where you take your power back. Because without the story in my body, heart, mind, I am and free. What other people do no longer imprisons me. Okay, so that's the process of loving inquiry. And another way to practice loving inquiry is just by stopping. Stop first. Develop your contemplative intelligence, your contemplative mind. Whenever you become self-aware, just practice stopping. It halts the behavior chain of events that keeps us getting in the same poor results time and time again. Take a deep breath, a contemplative pause, and don't act. Don't take anything or anyone in your environment personally, because once that is done, it will make you feel powerless. They don't have that much power over you. You are not your environment, and how you feel does not need to be dictated by your environment. That's how powerful we are. This is the power of love. So we don't imprison other people. We put the judge insurgent down, because when they stay free, the enemy, the person over there, the whatever situation, I stay free. When they stay free, I stay free. Staying fearless in my believing is to experience profound freedom. Expectations are always on their way to becoming resentments. So don't judge or expect anything from anyone, because we will start to believe lies through projection. And our loving inquiry is to smash projection down like we would a mask, and go through the veil of ignorance as we use consciousness to make us more loving. Remember, that's the way the environment is. God is love. The universe is love. Okay. As the paradigm process teaches us, learn to let go of your need to control and return to self-love through loving inquiry. So the other people and what they're thinking and how we're dictating to them why they're doing this and what they're doing that for, we've got to let go of it all. So stay in your business and imagine what a beautiful world it would be if we all stayed in our business. Loving inquiry is my business from today. I get hit with a stimulus, a thought, a feeling, an action. The consequence becomes mine to choose when I practice loving inquiry, when I stay in my business. So a beautiful way of expressing what your business is God's business is the environment which you were trying to control, that was causing you pain and suffering and stuckness and powerlessness especially. God's business is the environment, circumstances, the weather, external events, other people, not your business. What is your business is yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. Those are your business. And then ask yourself, what is my business? Other people? Other people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are not your business. And this is where you're going to have to be consciously wide awake, avoiding the projection, avoiding the trap of the dichotomous, judgmental mind. That's the practice of loving inquiry in a nutshell. And anyone can start it. It's just remarkable how it can set us free. And in so doing, set the world free. So the practice of loving inquiry for healing and life transformation is one of the practices we teach in the paradigm process, which is the 10 steps. It's a process out of the prison of your personality, which is formulated on fear. It is personality presenting itself as reality. When we get over those masks through this practice, we can overcome depression, any form of anxiety, all things based in fear. And then our victim positions, our codependence, our people-pleasing tendencies, and the way we judge, the way we control, the way we try and be perfect. That's the paradigm shift. And then when we drop those masks, we recover connection, self-love, certainty, wisdom, courage, and so on. Now, I want you to remember, control kills self-love. Perfectionism kills gratitude. Neuroticism kills surrender. Okay, codependence kills connection. Anxiety kills courage. But now look at it from the other side of your brain. Now read or repeat that from right to left. Courage kills anxiety. Connection kills codependence. Surrender kills neuroticism. Gratitude kills perfection. And self-love kills control. So you can turn it around and the truth will set you free.